The first time I saw the chain wrapped around the tennis court gates, I thought it was a joke. The morning sun was still soft, brushing gold across the neighborhood lawns. The air smelled like cut grass and the faint chlorine drift from someone's pool. It was my ritual to be there at 6:30 a.m. every Saturday, a thermos of coffee in one hand and my old graphite racket in the other. But that morning, instead of the hollow pop of tennis balls and the rhythmic squeak of sneakers, there was silence. And a lock. A thick, industrial, unapologetic lock. I stood there longer than I'd like to admit, staring at it as if it might disappear if I blinked enough times. The courts had been the heart of our little subdivision for over 20 years. They weren't fancy, no stadium lights, no bleachers, but they were ours. Or so I thought. A laminated notice flapped against the chain. Effective immediately, the tennis courts are closed until further notice, due to liability concerns and budget constraints. The HOA board. I read it 3 times. Liability concerns. Budget constraints. Translation. Someone decided tennis wasn't worth the trouble anymore. Behind me, I heard footsteps. "Tell me I'm dreaming," said Mrs. Alvarez, who played doubles every Tuesday and Thursday like it was sacred duty. I stepped aside, so she could see the lock. Her mouth fell open. "They can't do this." "Oh," I said quietly. "I think they just did." The emergency HOA meeting that Tuesday night was packed. Normally, HOA meetings drew about 7 people, most of them retirees who liked arguing about mailbox colors. This time, the clubhouse was standing room only. Tennis players, parents, teenagers, even a few people who didn't play but smelled injustice in the air. At the front sat the board, President Harold Benson, Vice President Denise Fowler, Treasurer Mark Chu, and 2 others who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Harold cleared his throat. "Let's maintain order, please." No one maintained anything. "You locked the courts without warning," someone shouted. "We pay dues for those facilities," another voice added. Harold raised his hands. "The board has determined that resurfacing costs, insurance premiums, and potential liability exposure make continued operation financially imprudent." That was Harold's way of saying, too expensive, too risky. I stood up. "How much would resurfacing cost?" I asked. Mark flipped through papers. "Approximately $18,000. Insurance adjustments would add another $4,000 annually." $18,000. Mrs. Alvarez gasped. "That's nothing," someone shouted from the back. Harold frowned. "We don't have nothing. Our reserve fund is allocated for roofing, plumbing infrastructure, and landscaping upgrades." Landscaping upgrades. I thought of the decorative rock garden they'd installed last year that looked like a gravel spill accident. "So instead of fixing the courts," I said, "you're just locking them." "For now," Denise replied. "Indefinitely." The room erupted again. I felt something shift inside me, not just frustration but resolve. "Then let us fix it," I said. The room quieted. Harold blinked. "Excuse me. Let the residents organize something. A fundraiser. A tournament. Whatever it takes. If money is the problem, we'll solve it." Denise exchanged a look with Mark. Harold folded his hands. "The HOA cannot officially endorse such an event due to liability." "Then don't," I said. "We'll handle it." That was the moment the idea was born. Not as revenge. Not yet. But as possibility. The idea grew legs over coffee at my kitchen table. Present, me, Mrs. Alvarez, my best friend Ravi, and 2 high schoolers who practically lived on the courts, Sophie and Tyler. "We host a tournament," Tyler said, leaning forward. "Like a big one." "Neighborhood?" Mrs. Alvarez asked. "Citywide," Sophie countered. We all turned to her. "Why think small?" she continued. "There hasn't been an open amateur tournament in this part of the city in years. My cousin has to drive 40 minutes to compete." Ravi's eyes lit up. "Entry fees." "Exactly," Sophie said. I leaned back in my chair. A city tournament. Entry fees. Prize money. Food trucks. Sponsors. The idea snowballed in my head. "If we charge $75 per entry," I said slowly, "and get, say, 100 players, That's $7,500, Ravi finished. And if we add doubles divisions, junior categories, Mrs. Alvarez said, warming to it. Concessions, Tyler added. Merch. T-shirts. Local business sponsorships, Sophie said. Suddenly, 18,000 didn't sound impossible. But there was a problem. The courts are locked, Ravi said. We all fell silent. Then I smiled. Not forever. The next HOA meeting was less crowded, but no less tense. I requested time on the agenda. Harold sighed when he saw my name. Mr. Khan, he said, you have 3 minutes. I'll need 2, I replied. I laid out the plan. A citywide amateur tennis tournament. Resident organized. Participants sign liability waivers. The HOA is listed as a facility provider, not event host. A temporary insurance writer purchased independently. Mark adjusted his glasses. You've done your homework. I have, I said. Harold frowned. Even so, the courts are currently closed. For general use, I said. But the governing documents allow the board to approve temporary access for community events. Denise flipped through a binder. He knew it. I knew it. We all knew it. Are you suggesting, Harold said slowly, that we reopen the courts for a for-profit tournament? For a fundraiser, I corrected. All net proceeds go toward court resurfacing. And who controls the funds? Mark asked. A transparent committee, I said. With oversight. Harold leaned back. He didn't like this. Not because it was illegal, but because it was clever. You would assume full responsibility, he asked. Yes. And if you fail? Then you lock the courts again, I said. And I'll personally apologize. The room held its breath. Harold finally nodded. Very well. 1 weekend. 2 weeks from now. Submit your insurance documentation within 10 days. As I walked out, Mrs. Alvarez grabbed my arm. You did it. No, I said, looking back at Harold's tight expression. We just started. The next 14 days were chaos. We designed flyers. We built a simple website. Sophie blasted social media posts across every local tennis group she could find. Tyler biked around town pinning flyers on bulletin boards. Ravi cold-called local businesses. Hi, this is Ravi calling about a sponsorship opportunity. We secured a sporting goods store willing to donate gift cards for prizes. A pizza place offered discounted slices. A smoothie truck agreed to park courtside for a small vendor fee. Entries started trickling in, then flooding. By the end of the first week, 86 players. By day 10, 142. We added divisions, extended match schedules, borrowed folding chairs.
Rentette portable chat d'étang.
The neighborhood buzzed like it hadn't in years. And Harold. He watched. From his porch. Arms crossed. The morning of the tournament felt electric. Cars lined the streets. Players stretched on sidewalks. Music played softly from a portable speaker. The smell of coffee and sunscreen mixed in the air. The lock was gone. In its place, a banner. First annual Riverside Open. I stood at the makeshift registration table, clipboard in hand, heart pounding. Mrs. Alvarez managed check-ins. Sophie coordinated brackets. Tyler directed parking like a traffic cop on a mission. By 8 a.m., all 4 courts were in full swing. The sound, oh, the sound. The pop of balls. The cheers. The rhythm of life returning. Spectators gathered along fences. Kids chased stray balls. The smoothie truck had a line 20 people deep. Harold walked by around noon.
He stopped. Watched.
Didn't say a word. But he stayed longer than he meant to. Chapter 7. The numbers by Sunday evening. We were exhausted.
Sunburned. Hoarse.
Thrilled. The finals drew over 100 spectators. We handed out trophies, gift cards, and applause. But the real moment came later. At my kitchen table again. Expenses, insurance, tents, printing, equipment came to about $4,800. Net proceeds, $15,850. Mrs. Alvarez covered her mouth. That's almost enough. Almost, Ravi said. I stared at the number. We were short by just over 2,000. And that's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello. This is Harold Benson. I put him on speaker. I attended the finals, he said stiffly. Impressive turnout. Thank you, I replied. There appears to be community interest. That's one way to put it. He cleared his throat. The board has voted to match the remaining funds required for resurfacing. Silence. You're serious? Sophie whispered. Yes, Harold said. However, the tournament must become an annual event under structured guidelines. I smiled.
Deal.
3 months later, the courts gleamed. Fresh blue and green coating. Crisp white lines. New nets. Opening day felt like redemption. Harold cut the ribbon. Yes, Harold. Politics is strange like that. He even shook my hand. Perhaps, he said quietly, we were too quick to lock the gates. Perhaps, I replied, we just needed a reason to open them wider. The Riverside Open became tradition. Year 2 doubled participation. Year 3 attracted regional players. We added junior scholarships funded by entry fees. What began as defiance became momentum. And the HOA. They never locked those courts again. Looking back, it wasn't really about tennis.
It was about ownership.
Not legal ownership. Community ownership. When something valuable is taken away, you have 2 choices. Complain. Or create something bigger. We chose bigger. And sometimes, the best way to unlock a gate is to build a tournament so successful that no one dares close it again.